What if I told you that some of the most powerful medicines you could possibly use are growing wild in ditches, abandoned lots, and maybe even your own backyard? Plants that our grandparents knew by heart, that healed soldiers on battlefields, that got people through centuries without hospitals or pharmacies. Most people don't know this, but while we're all running to the drugstore for every cut, cough, and ache, there are plants out there that have been healing humans for thousands of years. Plants with actual clinical evidence backing them up. And today, I'm going to show you 20 of them that will change the way you think about natural healing forever. Stick around, because number 17 on this list has been used for over 2,000 years, and modern science just confirmed it works against antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And number 20 is so powerful that it was literally the original aspirin before aspirin even existed, and is probably growing in a ditch near you right now. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because we post new videos every week that'll save you money, empower you to take charge of your health. So, let's get into it. Here are 20 forgotten medical plants that will heal you instantly, ranked from impressive to absolutely incredible. Number 1, Calendula, the medieval war flower, also called pot marigold. And this bright orange flower has one of the most battle-tested reputations in herbal medicine. Medieval soldiers carried calendula flowers into war specifically for treating cuts and wounds on the battlefields. They called it the war flower because when you had nothing else, no surgeon, no antibiotics, no sterile equipment, calendula could keep a wound from getting infected and help it heal clean. Calendula officinalis grows easily in almost any garden, producing cheerful orange and yellow flowers from spring through frost. But those pretty flowers are medical powerhouses. Modern clinical trials have proven what medieval warriors knew. Calendula extracts speed wound healing, including burns and surgical wounds. Studies show it promotes tissue repair and reduces inflammation. Here's why it works. The flowers are packed with compounds called triterpenoids and flavonoids that have genuine anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. You can make a simple calendula salve by infusing the dried flowers in oil, and you've got something that'll heal minor cuts, scrapes, burns, and inflamed skin faster than leaving them alone. The reason calendula got forgotten is simple. Pharmaceutical companies can't patent the flower, but for anyone who wants safe, effective wound care without a prescription, calendula is still waiting in gardens everywhere. Think of it as the emergency room in your backyard that's been there all along, just waiting for you to remember it exists. Number 2, sea buckthorn, the Himalayan skin healer. Sea buckthorn might be the ultimate forgotten superfood medicine. This spiny shrub with bright orange berries has been used in Tibetan, Russian, and Chinese traditional medicine for centuries, specifically for healing skin and mucous membranes. And modern science has caught up in a big way. Hippophae rhamnoids produces berries so rich in vitamins, antioxidants, and omega fatty acids that Russian cosmonauts use sea buckthorn oil in space to protect against radiation damage. Recent human studies show that sea buckthorn oil can improve skin barrier function, speed wound healing, and help with dry, inflamed mucous membranes. Everything from dry eyes to inflamed tissue. Here's what makes it special. The oil from both the berries and seeds contains a rare omega-7 fatty acid that supports mucous membrane health throughout your entire body. Clinical trials have shown improvement in dry skin, eczema, atopic dermatitis, and even dry eye syndrome and vaginal dryness after menopause. Sea buckthorn disappeared from Western medicine simply because it grows in harsh remote climates. The Himalayas, Siberia, high mountain regions, but you can grow it in cold climates, and the oil is available as a supplement. For anyone dealing with chronically dry, inflamed skin or mucous membranes, sea buckthorn does what most moisturizers only pretend to do. It actually heals from the inside out. It's like having an internal repair system in a berry that thrives where almost nothing else will grow. Number 3, Comfrey, the bone knitter. Comfrey has one of the most descriptive folk names in all of herbal medicine, Knitbone. For centuries, people used comfrey root and leaves externally on broken bones, sprains, bruises, and torn tissue, and they swore it made healing happen faster. Turns out they were absolutely right. Symphytum officinale contains a compound called allantoin that promotes cell proliferation, literally encouraging your cells to multiply and repair damaged tissue faster. Multiple modern clinical trials have proven that topical comfrey root extract significantly reduces pain and improves function in back pain, ankle sprains, abrasions, and osteoarthritis. We're talking about real published peer-reviewed studies showing that comfrey works. Here's the important part. Comfrey is for external use only. The plant contains compounds called pyrrolizidine alkaloids that can damage your liver if you take it internally, but used as a salve, cream, or poultice on the skin over injuries, it's remarkably safe and effective. You can make a simple comfrey salve by infusing the dried root in oil and adding beeswax. Comfrey got forgotten partly because of the internal use concerns and partly because modern medicine decided broken bones needed casts and x-rays, not herbs, but for the soft tissue injuries that happen constantly, the sprained ankles, the strained backs, the bruised muscles. Comfrey is still one of the fastest healers nature offers. Think of it as the plant that literally tells your body to knit itself back together faster than it would on its own. Number 4, Mullein, the lung cleaner. Mullein is that tall plant with fuzzy leaves and a spike of yellow flowers that you've probably seen growing in vacant lots and along roadsides. And for hundreds of years, it was the go-to remedy for any kind of lung congestion, coughs, bronchitis, asthma, chest colds with thick mucus. Verbascum species were used so commonly for respiratory problems that herbalists called it the lung's best friend. The leaves contain compounds called saponins that act as natural expectorants, helping you cough up mucus instead of letting it sit in your chest and turn into an infection. Recent reviews confirm mullein's anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial effects on the respiratory system. Here's how people used it. Traditionally, they'd make a tea from the dried leaves, strain it carefully through cheesecloth to remove the tiny hairs, and drink it 2 or 3 times a day when they had a chest cold. Some people smoked the dried leaves for asthma, though that's less common now. The flowers were also infused in oil for ear infections. Mullein disappeared from mainstream use because we developed cough syrups and decongestants, but those often just suppress the cough without actually helping you clear the infection. Mullein helps your lungs do what they're trying to do, get the junk out, and it does it without the side effects of pharmaceuticals. If you've got a chest full of mucus and a cough that won't quit, mullein is still growing wild, still free, and still working exactly the way it has for centuries. It's like having a maintenance crew for your lungs that's been on call this whole time, just waiting for you to remember to ask for help. Number 5, Plantain Weed, the trailside first aid kit. This is the plant that literally everyone has walked past 1,000 times and never noticed. Plantain weed, not the banana-like fruit, but the low-growing weed with oval leaves and thin flower spikes, grows in lawns, trails, and disturbed soil everywhere. And it's one of the most reliable first aid plants on earth. Plantago major was called white man's footprint by Native Americans because it seemed to grow everywhere European settlers walked. But they quickly learned that this humble weed could treat cuts, burns, insect bites, and infections better than almost anything else readily available on the trail. Modern research backs this up completely. Studies show plantain has genuine wound healing, anti-inflammatory, and antimicrobial effects. A clinical trial in Iran found that plantain ointment improved healing of second-degree burns better than standard treatment. The leaves contain compounds that soothe inflammation, stop minor bleeding, and fight infection. Here's the traditional use. You take a fresh leaf, chew it briefly to break down the cell walls, or just crush it and apply it directly to a cut, sting, or bite. Within minutes, the pain and swelling will start to decrease. You can also make a strong tea of the dried leaves to wash wounds or soak in for skin problems. Plantain got forgotten because it's a weed. It's common. It's everywhere. We've been trained to think that medicine should be rare and expensive, not growing in the cracks of our sidewalks. But for minor injuries, insect stings, and small burns, plantain is immediate, free, and incredibly effective. Think of it as the emergency room that literally follows you wherever you go, just waiting at your feet for the moment you need it. Number 6, yarrow, the soldier's herb. Yarrow contains compounds that genuinely shorten bleeding time and promote clotting. Studies show it has hemostatic effects, meaning it stops bleeding, plus anti-inflammatory and wound healing properties. Soldiers throughout history carried dried yarrow to pack into wounds, and for good reason, it worked. The plant grows wild across North America and Europe, producing clusters of tiny white or pink flowers on tall stems. The whole aerial part of the plant is medicinal. You can make a tea for internal use to reduce fever and inflammation, or apply crushed fresh leaves directly to cuts and scrapes to stop bleeding and prevent infection. Here's what makes yarrow special. It's both a hemostatic, stops bleeding, and a vulnerary, heals wounds. Most plants do one or the other, but yarrow does both. Traditional herbalists also used it for fevers, digestive complaints, and as a bitter tonic. Yarrow got forgotten simply because we developed synthetic clotting agents and antiseptics. But for anyone hiking, camping, or working outdoors, knowing that yarrow grows nearby and can stop a bleeding cut in minutes is genuinely valuable knowledge. It's like carrying a medic in your pocket, except the medic grows wild and free everywhere you look. Number 7, self-heal. The appropriately named miracle. The plant is literally called self-heal or heal, all which tells you everything you need to know about how our ancestors viewed it. Prunella vulgaris was used for virtually any kind of wound, sore throat, mouth ulcer, or inflamed tissue, and people trusted it enough to give it the most confident name in herbal medicine. Modern research is validating that confidence. Reviews show that self-heal has genuine wound-healing properties, anti-inflammatory effects, and even disrupts bacterial biofilms, those protective layers that bacteria create that make infections harder to treat. Traditional uses included gargling for sore throats, applying crushed leaves to wounds, and drinking tea for internal inflammation. Self-heal grows low to the ground in lawns and meadows, producing purple flower spikes that bees love. The whole plant is medicinal. You can make a strong tea to use as a mouth rinse for canker sores or sore throats, or apply crushed fresh leaves to minor cuts and scrapes. Here's what's fascinating. Self-heal works on mucous membranes particularly well. That means it's excellent for mouth ulcers, sore throats, and inflamed tissue in the mouth and throat, places where applying medicine is tricky. A simple tea used as a gargle can bring relief within hours. Self-heal disappeared from mainstream use simply because it's another common weed that pharmaceutical companies couldn't monetize. But for mouth and throat problems, it's still incredibly effective and safe. Think of it as the plant that took healing so seriously, it literally made it part of its identity. Number 8, Agrimony, the throat soother. Agrimonia eupatoria is one of those plants that medieval herbalists absolutely loved, particularly for anything involving the mouth, throat, or digestive tract. Agrimonia eupatoria produces tall spikes of tiny yellow flowers and has a long history as a gargle for sore throats and a tea for mild diarrhea and digestive upset. Reviews of traditional use describe agrimony water extracts being used for airway inflammation, pharyngitis, tonsillitis, laryngitis, as well as urinary problems, digestive issues, and chronic wounds. The plant contains tannins which have natural astringent properties that tighten and tone inflamed tissue. Here's how it was used. Traditionally, a strong tea of the dried aerial parts would be made and used as a gargle several times a day for sore throats and mouth inflammation. The same tea could be drunk for mild diarrhea or digestive upset, where the astringent tannins help tone the gut lining. Agrimony grows wild in meadows and along woodland edges, producing cheerful yellow flower spikes in summer. The whole above-ground plant is harvested and dried for tea. It has a mild, slightly bitter taste that's actually quite pleasant. The plant got forgotten partly because modern medicine has more aggressive treatments for throat infections, and partly because people don't make herbal gargles anymore. But for mild sore throats, especially the kind that come with post-nasal drip and irritation, Agrimony is gentle, effective, and soothing. It's like having a throat lozenge that actually heals instead of just numbing. Number 9, White Horehound, the original cough drop. Before there were cough drops, there was Horehound candy. White Horehound, Marubium vulgar, was so effective for coughs that people literally made it into candy and lozenges, and it was sold in every pharmacy and general store well into the 1900s. Horehound is a classic expectorant. It helps you cough up mucus and clear congestion. Herbal monographs describe it for productive coughs and bronchitis, and it's still used in some European cough syrups and throat lozenges. The plant contains a compound called marubium that stimulates bronchial secretions and helps break up congestion. The plant grows as a bushy perennial with fuzzy gray-green leaves and small white flowers. The whole aerial part is harvested and dried. Traditionally, people made a strong tea sweetened with honey, or they'd make actual Horehound candy by boiling the tea down with sugar. Here's what makes Horehound different from cough suppressants. It doesn't stop your cough. Instead, it makes your cough more productive, helping you actually clear the infection out of your lungs instead of just suppressing the symptom. That's genuine healing, not just symptom management. White Horehound disappeared from mainstream use when synthetic cough medicines took over the market, but those often come with side effects and don't necessarily help you heal faster. Horehound is still growing in herb gardens everywhere, still safe and still turning stubborn coughs into productive clearing. Think of it as the cough drop that actually wants you to get better, not just stop bothering people around you. Number 10, Boneset, the flu fighter. Now we're getting into the really powerful ones. Boneset, Eupatorium perfoliatum, was so famous as a flu remedy in the 1800s that practically every household kept dried boneset on hand for when the inevitable fever and body aches hit. It was called boneset because the deep muscle aches of flu were called breakbone fever, and this plant seemed to cure them. Boneset was one of the most important medicines during the great influenza epidemics of the 19th century. People would make a hot tea of the dried leaves and flowers and drink it at the first sign of flu, fever, chills, deep aching, exhaustion. Ethnobotanical sources describe it as a febrifuge, fever reducer, and an immune stimulant. Though robust modern clinical trials are still lacking, the plant grows in wet meadows and along streams, producing flat clusters of white flowers in late summer. The whole aerial part is harvested when flowering. The tea is intensely bitter. Some say it's one of the most bitter medicinal teas, but that bitterness was seen as part of what made it work. Here's the traditional use. At the very first sign of flu symptoms, you drink a hot cup of boneset tea, get into bed, and sweat it out. The plant seems to help the body mount an effective fever response, an immune reaction. Many people swore it could stop a flu in its tracks if caught early enough. Boneset got forgotten as vaccines and antiviral medications became available. But for the general flu-like illnesses that still hit us regularly, Boneset remains a powerful traditional remedy. Just be aware, the tea is incredibly bitter, and you take it when you're already feeling miserable. But sometimes the best medicine doesn't taste good. It just works. Now, if you're finding this valuable and you're starting to realize just how much healing knowledge has been hiding in plain sight, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button right now. It helps this video reach other people who are tired of running to the pharmacy for every ailment and ready to reconnect with medicines that have worked for centuries. And if you haven't subscribed to Everstead Roots yet, click that subscribe button and ring the bell. We're building a community of empowered, knowledgeable people who value healing over convenience, and I'd love to have you as part of it. All right, let's keep going, because we're just getting to the really amazing ones. Number 11, Blue Vervain, the nerve soother. Blue Vervain has one of the most interesting traditional uses. It was considered a nervine, a plant that calms and strengthens the nervous system. Verbena hastata and its cousin Verbena officinalis were used for nervous exhaustion, anxiety, tension, headaches, and insomnia. Basically, all the stress-related problems that we're dealing with more than ever today. Traditional herbalists describe Vervain as a remedy for people who are wound too tight, overthinking, tense, unable to relax or sleep. Modern herbal sources and some animal research suggest Vervain has genuine anxiolytic, anti-anxiety effects, helping to calm nervous tension without sedating you. The plant grows wild in wet meadows and ditches, producing tall spikes of tiny purple-blue flowers. The whole aerial part is harvested and dried for tea. The taste is quite bitter, so it's often combined with more pleasant herbs or sweetened with honey. Here's how it was traditionally used. A cup of Vervain tea in the evening to help wind down from stress and prepare for sleep, or during the day for people dealing with nervous tension and anxiety. It doesn't knock you out like sleeping pills. It just helps your nervous system relax and reset. Vervain got forgotten as pharmaceutical anxiety medications and sleep aids took over, but those often come with dependence, side effects, and rebound problems. Vervain offers a gentler approach for mild to moderate stress and tension. Not strong enough for severe anxiety, but perfect for everyday stress that builds up. Think of it as the friend who puts a hand on your shoulder and says, "It's okay to relax now." Number 12, Elecampane, the deep lung tonic. Elecampane is where herbal medicine gets serious about respiratory healing. Inula helenium was the remedy herbalists reached for when someone had a deep, stubborn lung infection. The kind of wet, productive cough that just won't quit. Chronic bronchitis or lingering chest congestion after pneumonia. The root of Elecampane contains compounds called sesquiterpene lactones that have antitussive cough calming and antimicrobial effects. Reviews describe it for chronic cough, asthma, and lung disease. And recent research confirms antimicrobial activity against respiratory pathogens. Elecampane grows as a tall perennial with huge leaves and sunflower-like yellow flowers. The thick roots are harvested in fall, dried, and used in decoctions, long-simmered teas, or tinctures. The taste is complex, slightly bitter, warming, aromatic. Here's the traditional approach. For deep lung problems, you take it in small, frequent doses over weeks or even months. It's not a quick fix. It's a deep lung tonic that helps your respiratory system heal and strengthen. Herbalists often combined it with other lung herbs for stubborn respiratory infections. Elecampane disappeared from common use partly because it requires patience. It works slowly and deeply rather than giving instant relief, and partly because antibiotics seemed like faster solutions. But for chronic lingering respiratory weakness, Elecampane still offers something antibiotics don't: genuine healing and strengthening of lung tissue. It's the plant that doesn't just fight the infection, it rebuilds the battlefield. Number 13, Toothache Plant, the instant numbing herb. This one lives up to its name in the most dramatic way possible. Toothache plant, Spilanthes or Acmella species, contains a compound called spilanthol that creates an instant tingling, numbing sensation in your mouth. Chew a fresh flower or leaf, and within seconds your whole mouth goes numb. Traditional healers use this for exactly what you think: toothaches, but also mouth ulcers, sore throats, and any painful oral condition. Reviews confirm local anesthetic and analgesic effects and is still used in some traditional medicine systems for oral pain. The plant grows as a small annual with yellow and red cone-shaped flowers that look like tiny spaceships. The flowers have the strongest numbing effect, but the leaves work too. You can grow it easily in warm climates or containers. Here's the traditional use. At the first sign of tooth pain or mouth ulcer, chew a fresh flower or leaf and let it coat the painful area. The numbing effect is immediate and can last for 30 minutes or more. It doesn't cure the underlying problem, but it gives genuine pain relief while you address the cause. Toothache plant got forgotten in the West simply because we have commercial numbing gels and pain relievers. But for anyone interested in natural pain management or dealing with mouth pain when nothing else is available, this plant is remarkable. The effect is so strong and immediate that first-time users are always shocked. It's like having instant dental anesthetic growing in your garden, waiting for the moment someone bites down wrong. Number 14, Oregon Grape, the skin healer. Oregon grape isn't actually a grape. It's a spiky-leaved evergreen shrub with yellow flowers and blue berries. But Mahonia aquifolium has something that makes it genuinely special. It's one of the few herbs with solid clinical evidence for treating chronic skin conditions like psoriasis. Multiple studies have shown that topical Oregon grape extract significantly improves psoriasis and atopic dermatitis symptoms. The plant contains berberine and other alkaloids that have antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory effects on skin. Traditional use included both topical application for skin problems and internal use for digestive issues. The bright yellow inner bark of the roots and stems is the medicinal part. You can make a salve or cream from it, or find commercial Oregon grape products specifically formulated for psoriasis. The effect isn't instant. You need to use it consistently for weeks, but the improvement can be significant. Here's what makes this important. Psoriasis and eczema are chronic, frustrating conditions that don't respond well to most treatments. Oregon grape offers a botanical option with actual clinical backing. Not just traditional use, but modern studies showing real improvement. Oregon grape got forgotten simply because it grows in the Pacific Northwest and wasn't widely available elsewhere until recently. But for anyone dealing with chronic, scaly, inflamed skin conditions, it's worth seeking out. Think of it as the plant that modern dermatology is quietly admitting actually works. Number 15, Yellow Dock, the liver and digestion ally. Yellow Dock is one of those alterative herbs. Old-fashioned herbalists called them blood purifiers, but what they really meant was herbs that help your body process and eliminate waste more efficiently. Rumex crispus root has been used for centuries for sluggish digestion, constipation, and skin problems that seem connected to poor elimination. The root is rich in bitter compounds and anthraquinones that stimulate bile production and digestive function. Modern herbal reviews link Yellow Dock with supporting liver function, improving digestion, and helping with chronic skin issues that respond to better internal cleansing. The evidence is mostly traditional and preclinical, but consistent. Yellow Dock grows as a tall weed with a deep taproot and reddish seed heads. The root is harvested in fall, dried, and used in small amounts in tea or tincture. The taste is quite bitter and astringent, which is part of what makes it effective. That bitterness triggers digestive responses. Here's the traditional approach. Small, regular doses of Yellow Dock root to improve digestion, relieve constipation, and support the liver's detoxification work. Over time, many people found that stubborn skin problems cleared up as their digestion improved. Because skin often reflects internal health, yellow dock got forgotten as laxatives and liver medications became the standard approach. But those often force the body to respond rather than supporting natural function. Yellow dock works more gently, helping your body do what it's supposed to do. It's the plant that doesn't do the work for you. It reminds your body how to do it itself. Number 16, Usnea, the wilderness antibiotic. Usnea isn't technically a plant. It's a lichen that grows hanging from trees like pale green hair, which is why it's called old man's beard. But this humble lichen has remarkable medicinal properties that make it one of the most important wilderness first aid remedies. Usnea species contain usnic acid and related compounds that have strong antimicrobial activity. Recent reviews show effectiveness against bacteria, including some antibiotic-resistant strains. Traditional use was primarily topical, crushing fresh usnea and applying it to wounds and infections, or making a tincture to use as an antiseptic wash. You can find usnea hanging from trees in relatively unpolluted areas, especially in the Pacific Northwest and mountain regions. It's slow-growing and should be harvested sustainably. Take only what's already fallen or clip small amounts from healthy trees. The lichen is prepared as a tincture, alcohol extract, for best medicinal effect. Here's the traditional wilderness use. If you cut yourself on a hike and have no first aid supplies, fresh usnea can be moistened and applied directly to the wound as an antimicrobial dressing. Modern research confirms this wasn't just wishful thinking. It genuinely fights infection. Usnea got forgotten simply because it's a lichen, not a plant, and it doesn't grow everywhere. But for anyone who spends time outdoors or wants a natural topical antimicrobial, usnea is fascinating. It's like having an antibiotic that grows on trees quietly waiting for someone to remember it exists. Number 17, barberry, the ancient antimicrobial. And this is the one I teased at the beginning. The plant that's been used for over 2,000 years in modern science is finally proving works against antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Barberry, Berberis vulgaris, contains an alkaloid called berberine. That's one of the most studied plant compounds in modern medicine. Berberine has documented antimicrobial effects against bacteria, fungi, and parasites. It has anti-inflammatory effects. It supports digestive health and has been shown to help with diarrhea, especially infectious diarrhea. Recent research even shows metabolic benefits, improved blood sugar control, and cholesterol levels. Traditional use goes back millennia, with barberry appearing in ancient Persian, Ayurvedic, and Chinese medicine. The bright yellow inner bark of barberry roots and stems contains the highest concentration of berberine. It can be prepared as a tea, tincture, or concentrated extract. The taste is intensely bitter, which is part of what makes it effective for digestion. Here's what makes barberry special. It's one of those rare plants where traditional use and modern science align perfectly. Ancient healers used it for digestive infections, liver problems, and inflammatory conditions. Modern research confirms antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, liver protective, and metabolic effects. The evidence is there. Barberry got forgotten in the West, partly because the shrub is thorny and aggressive, and partly because synthetic antibiotics seemed more reliable. But with antibiotic resistance becoming a serious problem, berberine-containing plants like barberry are getting a second look. It's the ancient medicine that's becoming cutting edge again because we're finally running out of alternatives. Number 18, red clover, the field medicine flower. Red clover is so common that most people think of it as just another lawn weed. But Trifolium pratense has been used medically for centuries, particularly for skin conditions, inflammation, and women's health issues. Recent studies have validated several traditional uses. Red clover contains isoflavones, plant compounds that have mild estrogenic effects. Research shows benefits for menopausal hot flashes, and traditional use includes topical application for skin healing and internal use for chronic skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis. The flowers also have anti-inflammatory properties. You can harvest the flower heads from clean areas not treated with chemicals, dry them, and make tea. The taste is mild and slightly sweet. Some people also make infused oils for topical use on skin problems. Here's the traditional approach. Red clover was often used long-term for chronic conditions. Weeks or months of regular tea for skin problems or menopausal symptoms. It's not a quick fix, but a gentle, nourishing medicine that supports healing over time. Red clover got forgotten simply because it's everywhere and common. We've been trained to think that real medicine should be rare and exotic, not growing in every meadow. But for mild menopausal symptoms and chronic skin inflammation, red clover offers a safe, gentle, time-tested approach. It's the field medicine that literally carpets the ground, just waiting for someone to notice. Number 19, sassafras, the historical fever fighter. Sassafras has a complicated history. Native Americans used sassafras root and bark for fevers, rheumatism, and digestive problems, and it was later used commercially to flavor root beer. The roots have a distinctive spicy aroma and were considered valuable medicine for hundreds of years. Traditional uses included fever reduction, treating rheumatic pain and inflammation, and digestive complaints. The plant contains aromatic oils that have warming, stimulating effects. However, and this is important, sassafras contains safrole, a compound that's been shown to have potential liver toxicity and carcinogenic effects in large amounts. Because of this, internal use is now restricted in many places. Sassafras is mostly historical at this point. Interesting to know about and understand in context, but not recommended for regular internal use given safety concerns. The traditional uses were real and the plant was genuinely valued. But we now know enough about the chemistry to be cautious. This is a good example of how traditional medicine and modern science can work together. Traditional use tells us what to investigate, and modern research tells us how to use it safely or when to find alternatives. Sassafras is part of medicinal plant history, but it's a reminder that natural doesn't always mean safe for regular use. It's the plant that taught us to respect both traditional knowledge and modern safety testing. Number 20, meadowsweet, the original aspirin. And here we are at number 20, the one I saved for last because it represents everything we've talked about today. Meadowsweet, Filipendula ulmaria, is the plant that aspirin was based on. Before synthetic aspirin existed, people used meadowsweet for pain, fever, inflammation, and interestingly, stomach irritation. Here's the fascinating history. Meadowsweet contains salicylates, the same compounds that aspirin is based on. When chemists first synthesized aspirin, they derived it from salicylic acid found in plants like meadowsweet and willow bark. But here's the twist. Meadowsweet doesn't cause the stomach irritation that aspirin often does. In fact, traditional herbalists used it to soothe stomach inflammation while relieving pain and fever. The flowers and leaves are harvested and dried for tea. The taste is pleasant, slightly sweet with an almond-like aroma. Studies confirm anti-inflammatory effects from the salicylates and other compounds. Traditional use included tea for headaches, arthritis, pain, fever, and digestive discomfort. Meadowsweet grows in wet meadows and along streams, producing creamy white clusters of fragrant flowers in summer. It's been used in Europe for centuries and was one of the most important pain-relieving herbs before modern pharmaceuticals. Here's what makes this plant the perfect ending to our list. Meadowsweet shows how we took nature's medicine, isolated one compound, synthesized it, and somehow ended up with something less balanced and more problematic than the original. The whole plant offers pain relief without the stomach damage that isolated aspirin causes. That's the genius of plant medicine. Nature's formulations are often better than our attempts to improve them. Meadowsweet got forgotten because aspirin became cheap, standardized, and available everywhere. But for people who can't tolerate aspirin stomach effects or who want a more balanced approach to pain and inflammation, Meadowsweet is still growing in ditches and meadows, still relieving pain, still doing what it's done for thousands of years. It's the original medicine that's been waiting patiently for us to remember that sometimes the natural version is actually better than the synthetic copy. If you enjoyed this deep dive into forgotten healing plants and you learned something new, smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and helps other people discover these incredible plants. Drop a comment below and tell me which plant you're most excited to try. Are you team wound healers, team respiratory remedies, team traditional pain relief? I read every comment and I love hearing from you. And if you haven't subscribed to Everstead Roots, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss.